Hello and welcome. I'm Anti-Derivative Jill, and this is Indefinite Lunch and Infinite Combinations number 29. Today I'm joined with pop culture curator and Scotty R37 to review the next episode of Star Trek in production order, The Enemy Within. So, thank you
Hello.
for joining me today, guys.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Good to see everybody. Hello. Hello, everyone in chat.
Yes,
And
and
hi, everybody on the chat, and hi, everybody on the panel. I am Captain Kirk.
you are Captain Kirk.
It's my ship, my ship.
And so I'd like to remind everybody to remember to subscribe to Pop Culture Curator and also to the Scotty R37's channel, The Phantasmagorium Show,
Thank you.
if you guys haven't already.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like
And,
we have some good people in the chat there. Good to see
well, yeah,
everybody.
absolutely, we do. We have Gorilla's Random Thoughts, he's lurking, and Herc130, who is also here. Thank you. And hi to Dave G. Sound. Awesome. So, for reference to the production of these episodes, all the facts that I'm going to share will come from Star Trek 365, the original series by Paula M. Block and Terry J. Erdman. And the idea to use this particular text as a source comes from R.M. Briggs, Raquel, who is featured on the Cloudburn Times channel. So everybody also make sure to subscribe to Cloudburn Times and check out Raquel's books. Well, I say books, but they're short stories. Check out her short stories that are put together in a science fiction anthology, a shared universe anthology. It's really cool.
Awesome.
So, in this episode, for the first time ever, we see the phaser used to heat up rocks to keep the crew warmer on the planet that is dropping well past freezing levels. And in honor of that, I want to read an excerpt from the 365 book about the phasers, which comes directly from the series Bible, or Star Trek's Writer's Guide, revised on April 17th, 1967. But first, I have to find it. It's in this book, and I didn't type it out. So I'm gonna. It's right here. The phasers, hand weapons. We have two phasers: the hand phaser, which is hardly much larger than a king-sized package of cigarettes, and the phaser pistol, which consists of the hand phaser snapped into a pistol mount, the handle of which is a power pack, which greatly increases the range and power of the weapon. The reason for two phasers: in some instances, such as friendly calls and diplomatic missions, our landing party would not want to beam down to a planet with the larger phaser pistols hanging from their belts. The hand phaser, along with the communicator, is worn on a belt underneath the shirt. At other times, the story does require that the landing party be conspicuously armed. Both the hand phaser and the phaser pistol have a variety of settings. The one most often used are the stun effect, which can knock a man down and render him unconscious without harming him, and full effect, which can actually cause an object to dematerialize and disappear. The phaser is also capable of being set to cause an object to explode or to burn a clean hole through an object. Phasers can also be set to overload, resulting in a power buildup and explosion, which destroys the phaser and anything in close proximity. And that's that.
Yeah, it's interesting why they would have that as part of the design and make one where you can intentionally make it blow up. But I guess maybe if you're on a suicide mission, huh?
Well, it's just a natural function of it um, that can be used when it needs to be.
Absolutely.
I always like the overload setting, just as having
Mhm.
it like a trap, or you could use it as a sort of like a grenade kind of thing.
Grenade, yes, exactly my thought too.
Yeah,
Like a
that's
grenade.
true.
And doesn't number one almost do that in the
Oh
cage?
yeah, she does. Yes, she does.
I want the range of the explosion if you can get out of there fast enough.
Mhm. I don't know what its
And
range.
I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to mention a few notes from Inside Star Trek: The Real Story by Herb Solow and Robert H. Justman.
Please do.
I'll make this quick. This is just a few notes on the opening narration from William Shatner, the one that we're all used to, the opening narration of These Are the Voyages.
Mm-hmm.
These
Right.
are the notes that they were actually creating up to the last minute when they were recording the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before. And I have a production note to Gene Roddenberry from Bob Justman dated August 1st, 1966, saying, "Dear Gene, it is important that you compose, without delay, our standard opening narration for Bill Shatner to record. It should run about 15 seconds in length, as we discussed earlier." Very next day, rough draft, saying, this is the original rough draft. This is the story of the United Spaceship Enterprise, assigned a 5-year patrol of our galaxy. The giant starship visits Earth colonies, regulates commerce, and explores strange new worlds and civilizations. These are its voyages and its adventures. And then later that same day, they revised that to, "This is the adventure of the United Spaceship Enterprise, assigned a 5-year galaxy patrol. The bold crew of the giant starship explores the excitement of strange new worlds, uncharted civilizations, and exotic people. These are its voyages and its adventures." Apparently, went through several rewrites up until the last minute. Apparently, the night before. It says, "On the afternoon of August 10th, 1966, literally minutes after Gene finished his final version, I phoned Bill Shatner on the stage where he was working on Dagger of the Mind, our 9th episode to be filmed. I told him to drop everything, and then I ran across the street to the dubbing stage. Bill raced to meet me and arrived a minute later, slightly out of breath. We rehearsed the dialogue several times and made a take. Due to Bill's classical training, his delivery was excellent, but the narration sounded too contemporary. There was something lacking. It didn't seem to ring out. I asked the sound mixer to add reverberation to Shatner's voice. We made another take, and the results were perfect. Bill had become Captain Kirk, the adventurous commander of spacecraft of the future, when he declared the words we all know in the opening narration. So I just wanted to cover that, how it kind of evolved.
Yeah, and I think some of the words from that come from a press release from NASA.
Oh, very cool.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And also a grammatically incorrect statement that finalizes the opening narration that wouldn't be corrected until James Cromwell, as Zephram Cochrane says in Enterprise, to go boldly, because it is grammatically incorrect to say to boldly go, just to be a grammar stickler.
And hello in the chat to Pleasant Valley Picker CA.
Hey, PvP.
He likes
you
the
for
final
voting.
narration best.
Agreed.
Oh, absolutely, yes. It's funny how it was at the last minute and rushed.
Mm-hmm. And here's the planet where we're
Alpha
going to all freeze
117.
to death. And this episode first aired on October 6th, 1966. It was written by Richard Matheson and directed by
Ooh.
Leo Penn.
Richard
and-
Matheson, who wrote Last Man on Earth, which was adapted into I Am Legend.
Yep.
Or was it I Am Legend that it was adapted into Last Man on Earth? I forget.
Yeah, it says here that he wrote films like Duel, I Am Legend, The Incredible Shrinking Man, Somewhere in Time.
Right. And he
Ooh.
also wrote a few Twilight Zone episodes, including Terror at 30,000 Feet.
Sweet.
Yes, which of course also stars William Shatner.
Absolutely. And he also wrote the short story Prey, that was, if any of you have seen the movie Trilogy of Terror, about the little Zuni doll, fetish doll that attacks Karen Black.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
No, I haven't
If you have
seen
not seen it, I recommend it.
Oh no, I haven't
Okay.
seen it, but it sounds great. I really like his writing in this episode. It begins on the surface of a planet with this cute little dog with his horn. They can only visit this planet during the day because at night the temperatures go to below minus 120 degrees. I think it's Fahrenheit that they use.
I would have thought that it would have been Celsius, simply
Well, if
because
it's-
everything else in the Federation.
Well, if
or in
it's
Starfleet-
Celsius, then it's even colder, right? So,
I think it would be right. But I
uh,
think they're assuming that it's Fahrenheit.
yeah, I think it's Fahrenheit that they're using
Okay. Okay.
because otherwise, there's no way anybody. I still think minus 120 is impossible for anyone to survive in, but minus 84 Celsius is would be more believable than minus 120 Celsius.
Well, especially for the thin blankets they're using that looks like barely a sheet.
Right, right. It's like, but those weren't really blankets. See them in the background. Those are just their tents. They
Tarp,
used the tent
yes.
tarp. hmm Because they couldn't send down anything for the cold because it got duplicated and wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah. Oh, and Gorilla has an excellent comment regarding that.
Oh yeah, I know. Okay, so the thing with that is this is early on in the show, Gorilla's Random Thoughts. So I don't know that they even had shuttlecrafts yet, or if the production even made any yet. I don't know the history on that. That would be something good to look up. But I
I
don't
was
think
just
they
reading
have
it.
shuttlecrafts at this point.
No, they hadn't. They were still in the design stage. I was just looking at some of the notes
hmm
about what the original shuttlecraft was supposed to look like. It was like dual level, like where the pilot would sit up higher than the rest of the crew, which was
Right.
eventually built by AMT. So yeah,
Oh,
it
really?
hadn't been made yet. Yes.
Okay, but that's the whole reason why they used transporters in the first place because they didn't have the budget to land a craft every single episode. And so that's how they got creative and came up with transporting, which is heavily featured in this episode.
Yes, it is. And I'm sad to say, Jill, you have made it so that every time I see the transporter now, I'm going to question the logic of everything.
Well, we can question the logic of it while still appreciating the beauty of an episode that is well written, well
Agreed.
acted. And we could do both, and then they'll both be fun.
Yes.
Another thing
And
that you guys will notice about this episode is they haven't phased out the phasers with the white handles yet. Gene Roddenberry didn't like that. He said they looked too much like toys, so they were directed to phase them out or paint them black, which they eventually did. So you'll notice in this
oh,
episode all the phasers have white handles.
okay,
Huh.
yeah. I don't know if I get a good shot of the phasers in this episode.
You will, you will. They're all over. You'll see.
Okay. Um, and Celsius is colder,
Oh,
and
okay.
they must be thermal tarps.
Well, even now we have those thin survival blankets, right? They look like aluminum foil that are supposed to be able to retain your body heat.
Right. Yeah. Like, I guess.
Like Mylar?
They look like Mylar, but I think they're supposed to be a little stronger. But they have an emergency where you can pack them and keep them in your car in case something happens. They're supposed to be able to reflect your body heat on the inside.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hello to Mad G, who reminds everybody to hit that like. That's a good idea. I like that.
Thank you, Matt G.
I suppose I should subscribe as well.
Yes. Right. Subscribing is also cool.
Like, share, subscribe, comment, join us in the chat, or be left on a planet to freeze.
Yeah, but at least they're cute animals. Geological technician Fisher cuts his hand with the magnetic yellow ore and is transported back to the Enterprise. And something strange is happening with the transporter that Scotty is noticing here.
Right. So there are they. I just want to be clear on this. Are they saying that magnetic ore is what threw off the transporter, right?
I think so.
This is the implication throughout the episode, but never fully explained
Gotcha.
or delved into.
Okay. Go ahead.
So Scotty says that the transporter acted like a burnout. So he does a check on the transporter before beaming Kirk back up, and everything seems fine. But he still sends Wilson off to get a synchronic meter.
But everything seems fine, so Scotty resets the transporter for our hero, Captain James T.
Yeah. Oh, and he has this device that he's scanning the geological, whoever he is. I already forget his name.
Geological technician
Fisher.
Yes.
Fisher.
Fisher,
And don't
yeah.
forget, there's transporter technician Wilson. I do enjoy his facial expressions in this scene. He looks agog at Fisher and what has been done to the transporter.
Mhm.
This is also a strange uniform because it doesn't have the Starfleet Delta.
And Pleasant Valley Picker has to go, so I'll read his comments here.
Sure.
He rated this one highly on Shatner's performance alone. He played two sides of a human personality quite effectively. And anyway, he has to go. Bye, everybody. Bye,
Take
Pleasant
care.
Valley. Have a good
See you,
day.
PvP.
Yeah, Gorilla says nobody can survive minus 20 Fahrenheit. That's Tuesday in Minnesota.
Right,
Mhm.
but you can't go out in Minnesota in that temperature with no blankets or something. That's their problem is that they're not dressed for the occasion. I guess you could say.
And before I was cutting you off earlier, you were saying something about the Delta. What were you saying
Oh, just
about
his
it being
uniform.
missing?
It doesn't have it. Yeah, which I
Yeah,
thought was strange.
On the
that is
chest.
strange, and it does appear later. So I'm like, what happened? Did
Mhm.
he took up sewing? So meanwhile, Scotty brings Kirk back, who stumbles off the transporter pad feeling dizzy. And then, as Scotty escorts Kirk out of the transporter room, another Kirk transports onto the Enterprise too, giving a very sinister face with accompanying music. So we
But
know
this
that there's
time
something
with
off.
eyeliner. You can tell he's
Eyeliner and
evil because of
mascara.
eyeliner.
Eyeliner, of course, yes. That's always the giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
So now, what's interesting about this captain's log is that it's made well after the fact. So I'll read the whole thing because I want to. Captain's log, stardate 1672.1. Specimen gathering mission on planet Alpha 177. Unknown to any of us during this time. A duplicate of me, some strange alter ego, had been created by the transporter malfunction. Mhm. Oh, well. I don't have any notes for this part, but this is just Eva Kirk.
Right, acting like he's fascinated, like he's never seen a transporter before.
I always took that part of the performance as he was sort of like sinisterly looking at the transporter as you gave me life kind of thing, which was
Possibly.
weird. But there's Wilson going.
Oh, do you think he realized he was being born?
I think no. When he gets off of the transporter, I think I think that he's like, well, this is different. This is new. Thank you, transporter. Anyway, I'm off to get some libation.
That is a great point. I never thought of that. And this is a little bit of an awkward moment where Wilson is trying to help Kirk, but Kirk just makes faces at him and leaves. It's well done.
Well, yes, the performance is well done, but it's also if you can't tell that this person is being creepy, then you don't have any creep radar.
No, Wilson is so innocent.
Yes.
The first the first Kirk, the good Kirk, encounters Rand and dismisses her so he can rest. And in sickbay, McCoy is treating Fisher's hand when Evo Kirk arrives and demands Saurian brandy.
Now, before we move on to the best line of the episode, the second best line of the episode, I really liked future medicine going on here because obviously Fisher had cut his hand, and he does like McCoy does like a thing on his hand and then sprays it with a Windex or whatever. And if you've seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, if you have a problem, spray Windex on it, it'll fix it. And then sorry, that's for everyone who's seen rom-coms from the early 2000s. And so I really like that because with the dermal regeneration and stuff, it's still something that already happens in the 23rd century. So I did like that detail of how
And the
quickly you
modern
can
day,
heal lacerations.
right? And the modern day squirt bottle, I love it. They haven't changed
Yeah.
it all, have they?
I appreciate you bringing that into the conversation. That is wonderful. Is that the first time we see dermal regeneration?
It's the first time that we've seen I'm assuming that this is a matter of half an hour after he's beamed up. And so his palm being all bloodied and all that jazz, he had it cut and he had to go to sick bay, and then now with the towel we're just wiping it up and everything seems to be fine. So I think that this is the first time. I could be mistaken.
And this is a point where Star Trek is science fiction. It has inspired real, real science to look up a way to do this kind of thing, with skin grafting and all that stuff.
Right,
Mhm.
and remember in the motion picture, Janice or Nurse Chapel used it on Chekhov when he burned his hand. She used a device that sprayed. It wasn't spray
Mhm.
bottles, but it was a device that sprayed on his burned hand.
See, it's just a matter of delivering Bactine.
Yeah.
So Kirk comes into sickbay and says, "Sorry and brandy." I said, "Give me the brandy." Sorry, I love that line so much, and him just wandering the halls, hauling off on a Saurian brandy bottle,
This is
which does show,
hilarious. Yeah,
and that bottle shows up in future iterations of Star Trek. It has become an iconic spirits vessel.
and a collector's item on eBay for that reason.
Oh, it what I you know what? I'm going to see if I can find out what it was originally because it was obvious. It would have been something that they just picked up at the local
Yeah,
bottle shop, I
exactly.
assume.
No, I have that here. The book has it.
Oh,
One thing
sweet.
about the brandy, the book says that Captain Kirk's Soaring brandy and its very unique bottle is actually a commemorative powder horn whiskey decanter produced by the George Dickel Distillery of Tennessee in 1964.
Wow.
Although featured most prominently in The Enemy Within, the bottle would show up in several other episodes, including The Journey to Babel, Space Seed, By Any Other Name, and Elaine of Troyes.
And if I'm not mistaken, there is a similar bottle at Quark's bar as well.
You're probably right. Yeah, that that sounds right.
I know
Similar
my
powder.
space booze.
You really do. So impressive. Similar powder horn decanters fetched a pretty penny in the dealer rooms of early Star Trek conventions, even without the whiskey. Well, of course, without the whiskey, we only need the bottle. Anyway, and Matt G is saying later. See you later, Matt G. Thanks for stopping by.
Take care, sir.
Or,
Cheers.
or you're just saying later to Pleasant Valley Picker. In which case, I'm glad that you're still here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't know which. And
I will
then,
be on Matt G lookout.
mhm.
Yeoman Janice Rand. This is where she lives, obviously.
Yeah. So now
What
everybody
does
knows.
what does 3C46 mean? Is that
Level
like
of the
cuz
ship and what room, probably, right? Maybe level 3?
is it deck
Deck,
3?
deck 3? Section C, room 46?
I would take that. I would accept that. Sure, yeah. Meanwhile, being half in the bag, he decides to go in and wait anxiously for the return of Janice
Yeah.
for one of the most uncomfortable things ever seen on Star Trek.
Well, yeah. No, it's incredible for a '60s television show to touch on the topic of rape. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if YouTube allows me to say that word, but it is a pretty powerful thing.
Or you say assault, I guess. That's what they pretty
Well,
much use
yeah,
now.
but I
Yeah.
mean, it's the
Sexual assault.
prelude of it.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Very well hinted, yes, very much so.
And before that, uh,
In
Spock shows up in at Goodkirk's quarters to ask him about the brandy that he just stole, and Kirk's like, "What brandy? What are you talking about?"
I was busy being topless and good looking. I'm just in my quarters, man.
And so then in the transporter room, Scotty reports to Goodkirk of a transporter breakdown. They beamed up the unicorn dog and got back one gentle one and one vicious one. And this is why they can't send Sulu or the landing party back up. And as we said earlier, we also don't have shuttles yet.
Now, I remember reading something about this particular scene. At this point, everything is explained. So we beamed up Fisher, we beamed up you, we beamed up this specimen, we got a good one and an evil one. And then they find out, like later, that there is like a doppelganger, an imposter, what have you. And not even Spock connects the dots on this one. So I think this scene was actually supposed to be later, but they establish it early in for the audience, I think.
Well, it makes sense to me because maybe they think that this dog is the first instance of a splitting, a duplication, and they don't realize that Kirk was the first.
No, I don't. Well, that's true. But when they do, anyway, we'll continue. We'll continue. You know what? I'm going to continue just sort of poking holes. I apologize to everyone who adores this episode, but watching it again today, I got a lot of problems.
Well, it doesn't matter if I adore an episode. I want all the holes poked in because I think it's really fun to go through them.
Well, I appreciate it. I just don't want to be rude. That's all. And I'll do my best. I don't want to be evil, Kirk. Evil Scott.
Well, it's always a balance, right?
I try.
Second, Evil Kirk. This is the part where he invades Rand's quarters,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, definitely a very uncomfortable scene. And
Thanks, Gorilla. That is an interesting way to put it, and I appreciate it. So this is the assaults, and you know what? I would have expected a little bit better combat training, even for yeomen. But I'm glad you got to
well,
scratch
no,
his face
she
up.
explains it later. She said, because he's captain. I think she says something like that. That she didn't want to.
She does.
She didn't want to. She held back. She held back her training because of his stature.
Which I could understand. She was. You gotta remember at this point, she's very confused. She's never seen him do this before.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he forces her on the floor, and that prompts her to scratch his face. She manages to get away to the door and call out for Fisher to get Mr. Spock, which she then does. But Kirk
Fisher
beats
gets his
him up.
ass whooped.
Poor Fisher, yeah.
He fell
Wrong
off a
place at the
cliff
wrong-
and then he get beat up by his captain.
Right, wrong place at the wrong time again.
Yeah, Evil Kirk punches him so hard, just knocks him out again. And then again, Spock confronts Good Kirk because he finds a brandy that Good Kirk denied taking in Rand's quarters. And so Good Kirk goes to the turbo lift to sickbay, just as Angry Kirk appears to go to Kirk's quarters.
Yes, that was an excellent edit. I loved it.
I like that too.
Yeah, it's just like just missed each other.
Oh, that's cool. I never I didn't see that during the episode. But if you go back one slide where it says it has that panel on the wall and it says atmospheric system, so there are controls throughout the decks of the Enterprise to be able to monitor and adjust. I would assume that's great.
Yes. Son of a Redshirt said, also, Soren Brandy is Captain Sisko's personal favorite. Hola, Kapla, and cheers to anti-derivative Jill and everybody driving. Will check in when I stop. Cheers.
Ahoy, son of a red shirt.
Drive safe, sir.
Yes. Gorilla's Random Thought says, so when Kirk split one side, couldn't get laid, and the other made people unwilling. Oh my god. Okay.
Unwilling sperm recipients, I believe he continues to say.
Okay. Yeah, that's how he ends that. Yes.
Yep.
Dave G Sound says it isn't rude to poke a bit of fun. Right, I agree completely.
Thank you.
I think the nitpicking is fun. The infamous "I'll kill you" scene is the best, says Dave G Sound.
So Captain Kirk is known to have a toothbrush holder, several combs and brushes, and cover-up, apparently.
Yeah, he keeps makeup in his quarters, I guess.
So if the question is, maybe Captain Kirk is born with it, actually, maybe it's Maybelline.
Yeah. Right.
Doesn't he have a sink? Why does he have to suck on his knuckles like that?
I don't know. Well, because he's in his animal mode. Like the angry Kirk doesn't
That's what I was
have
gonna say, yeah.
logic. He's full lizard.
I think it's like his animal instinct is taken over.
Fair enough. But he's still dainty enough to put on cover-up. I guess he does have to go in disguise, and makeup isn't necessarily dainty.
Well, you still want to look your best.
Yeah,
Well,
but then what is... What does he do with it the rest of the time? He just has it in case he has a pimple?
Yeah, well, they say later the captain can't look anything less than perfect.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not a pimple. It's a blemish.
And so in sick bay, Rand is telling Kirk, Spock, and McCoy about her attack in her quarters and how she had to scratch him to get away. And Kirk advises that she look to see that he has no such scratch. But then Fisher shows up to back up Rand's claims here. But good Kirk knows he wasn't there, so Spock's conclusion is that there is an imposter. And so here we get another captain's log, stardate 1672.9. On the planet's surface, temperatures are beginning to drop. Our landing party there in growing jeopardy. Due to the malfunction of the ship's transporter, an unexplained duplicate of myself definitely exists. And that's that captain's log. Oh, is that the end of this? Yeah, this is the end of these slides. I'll move into the next one.
Oh, okay.
Because if I put too many slides on one, Google complains and says that's too many, and so I have to split it up.
No. So after the captain's log, they go shopping for pets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the transporter room, Scotty is telling Good Kirk about how Fisher arrived on the ship in the magnetic yellow ore with unusual properties. What properties are unusual about it? We never know.
Magnetic.
Well, I did say magnetic, but
Yeah, no.
only,
No.
but
That's
is
the only
that
thing.
that's the only thing that's unusual about it? Well, that's the only
Probably.
thing we know that's unusual about it.
True.
Scotty doesn't want to bring up the crew because they could be divided like this animal was. Then we see Good Kirk get very worried about the landing party because they will die if they stay on the planet for too long. And the temperature drops to 120 below zero. My main question here is that if the temperatures of the planet are about to kill the landing party, that right, shouldn't there be a shuttlecraft? But I think we decided at the beginning of this podcast that they don't have them yet.
And just to put it to bed finally, like we will discuss the shuttlecraft once we get to the Galileo 7
I
because that was
can't
a whole
wait. I love
production
that
thing.
episode.
Ditto. But that is the reason. But this is, when we're going through these episodes, we're still working out bugs and trying to figure out all the workings of the ship. And so I do forgive it. And also, it could be a situation where they don't have any shuttles on board currently. Although it would have been a line of dialogue, but who cares? The only problem with any of that sort of dismissal is that there's a shuttle bay hangar on the back of the Enterprise that we've already seen several times, and it's just sort of not addressed at all until the Galileo 7.
Well,
but yeah, it's
right,
a glaring omission.
Well, right. One of the practical reasons, not for the show within the show or the canon, but in real life, was budget. This show was so expensive at the time; they really put a lot of their money up front for the sets, and we wouldn't have the Galileo if it wasn't for AMT building it and giving it to the show pretty much.
True story.
So it's because of budget, unfortunately. I'm sure they would have had it in the first episode if they had the opportunity.
And Kirk's decision-making skills have started to become less intuitive and less assertive. Spock says that when they find evil Kirk, they can't kill it because they don't know what killing it will do to good Kirk, which helps him decide that the crew needs to keep their weapons on stun, but Spock is leading Kirk to this conclusion. But the author and so Shatner does a really great job in changing Kirk's character to appear less sure of himself. And even his speech pattern, I noticed, was broken up to show his insecurities.
Self-doubt. Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how quickly Shatner can turn off certain aspects of Captain Kirk that make him less of a leader. And I think that's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is the episode where we see his really the wide range of his acting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would like to point out while they're having this sort of almost intimate conversation about the nature of command and informing the crew and figuring out how to move forward. I would like to note that Scotty is standing in the corner quietly saying, awkward.
I don't even think about Scotty when I'm
He
watching
never
this.
left the room. He's just sort of standing there being like, I guess I'll fix this while you guys talk about the nature of what's going to affect the crew. By the way, I'm part of the crew.
Well, that's the professionalism of Starfleet. When you notice something important going on, you just sit back and listen.
Well, especially if it's two superior officers, I guess you're just not gonna butt into the
Well,
conversation, maybe.
yeah, and also that's just sort of a
Mhm.
surface level nitpick because if I'm going to trust anybody with anything, it's probably going to be Scotty anyway. So
Of course. Nobody but Captain Kirk himself loves well, no, Scotty probably loves the ship even more. I don't know. Who loves the ship more, Scotty or Captain Kirk? The next poll
yes,
at Friday, on my Friday show. So, at every turn, Spock has to guide Kirk to the best answer from this point forward, and even has to tell him, like he said, that the crew can't really know exactly what's going on, because if they lose faith in him, Kirk will lose command entirely.
Yeah, I don't like to nitpick, but that's the scene I always wish they would have done in the Orville. I wish somebody would have reminded him that he's captain and he can't let people push him around. I do like the
Oh,
Orville, but I always thought of this scene right here while watching the Orville. Every time I saw his strings being pulled by everybody around him.
but that's also like in terms of the Orville. I did like Ed Mercer's admiration for Kermit the Frog simply because I have an admiration for Kermit the Frog myself.
mhm.
And so it was more of a command style of being a leader while also being supportive. So
Ed
maybe
Mercer
a
was
little
a
bit
very different captain from Kirk.
very different.
Yes,
Very
that's
different.
true.
Different. Um, he was a little closer to Picard than Kirk. I don't know. And
That dog is a terrible actor. He's looking right in the camera.
so cute. He can look wherever he wants.
I
If I remember
Leave him
suppose.
right,
alone.
if I remember right, I think they had to use two dogs for these scenes, right?
That would make sense.
Yeah.
One that they have to make irate.
Yes, I think I remember hearing that there was two dogs that they had to shoot. They were basically twins.
And hello in the chat. We've got a new guest here, John Rendell. Hello, John
Hey, John.
Rendell.
Welcome, John.
And Dave G. Sounds wants us to know. You also have to remember that the writers were still using ideas based in current tech for the time, as well as IE military tactics.
And
Supply.
supply. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What's IE military?
In other words,
In example. IE example. Sorry. My brain left my head for a moment there. Stream brain. Um so another captain's log, stardate 1673.1. Something has happened to me. Somehow, I'm being duplicated. I have lost my strength of will. Decisions are becoming more difficult. More and more difficult.
Oh, and before we go on, I love this uniform, and not many people can pull it off, but I always enjoyed this. The braid at the collar as opposed to the cuffs, and the wraparound with the Starfleet Delta acting as sort of a latch belt. This is a great costume. I think the only other time I've ever seen anybody else pull it off quite as well is Jonathan Archer in A Mirror Darkly.
I like
wouldn't
it
this
too.
be would this be considered a tunic? No.
This one seems like I think it's called the command wrap. I believe it would be a more casual uniform. Obviously, in the context
Yeah,
of the
I
show,
always
they
thought it
were
was like a casual version of his regular shirt.
yes,
Mhm.
and obviously it was used to differentiate good Kirk and evil Kirk. But I
Yes.
like it. I think it's great.
Me too. That's pretty cool. From command gold to command green. And Kirk broadcasts a message to look out for an imposter who looks
Oh,
just
here
like
it comes.
him, but with scratches on his face. And Spock has to remind him to tell the crew to set their phasers to stun. And of course, Evil Kirk is also listening, and he has a bit of a tantrum. And what does he chant?
I'm Captain Kirk.
Thank you. Repeatedly and manically.
Yes.
And then he
Busts up
starts
his computer.
throws his
Monitor.
books everywhere.
And there it
I'm
is.
Captain Kirk. It's just so fun to say. Give it a go.
At least I'm glad he really gave it his all. I wonder, could Jeffrey Hunter have done a performance like this? I don't know.
I don't know.
He could have played good Kirk because that's almost Captain Pike.
True.
I'm Captain Kirk.
See?
There you go. It makes you feel better, don't it?
That's what I'm going to say next time I get pulled over.
Anytime
Sir?
you're having a bad day, right?
Just find a mirror and start screaming, I'm Captain Kirk. All right, I'll stop.
Well, you're probably safe in Canada, but I wouldn't recommend that here.
No, I don't think it's a good idea in Canada. I don't think it's a good idea to yell at police anywhere. Especially not the unhinged rantings of an evil James T.
Yeah, and don't
But-
do it in the stall when you're in a public bathroom.
No, that's my favorite time. That and who does number 2 work for? But here we go with the gold toiletries that you used to be able to find at any local dollar store with soap container, hairbrush, toothbrush container, and yeah.
Well, one thing I do have to mention as far as military is when I was in boot camp, basic training, is the first thing we did is we had to buy a grooming kit, which
Okay.
consisted of a bag and razor supplies, and each one of those objects was one of the requirements. These were requirements that had to be in that bag. So we had to have our tooth holder, we had to have a bar of soap holder, and all that, and we had to keep that bag organized. It was a little black bag that had a zipper top, and we
Nice.
were required to carry that around with us. So that kind of hints back to if a military person would still have that. But you would think he'd have drawers, I guess. Why is everything up on top in cases when he would have drawers? But that's neither here nor there.
Also, Kirk sometimes does have lady friends, so maybe they left the makeup there too.
Well, that's true.
Who knows?
What else they leave behind?
Mylar undergarments. Here's Wilson.
Yeah,
Who's-
Wilson comes by to see if Kirk needs any help. And Kirk does need help. He wants his phaser. So, take us away here. No, see, I don't get a good shot of the phaser here.
You
But
will.
I guess I will
Pretty
later.
soon. Yeah, they'll all be wearing phasers soon, so you'll see it all over.
Okay. And
Poor
poor
Wilson.
Wilson. I know.
Yeah.
And so he gets knocked out, poor Wilson. And on the planet, poor Sulu is already visibly suffering from the cold.
Captain, would you mind sending down a shuttle?
Now would be a good time.
They should have included that in the dialogue. Just like, oh, our shuttles are all messed up right now.
I'm just harping on something that we've already sort of put to bed, so I apologize.
No, that's okay. It's totally fine. But, I mean, they could have written it in there. Herc 130 says, quit making me laugh. I'm listening to you all on earbuds and keep laughing out loud. My coworkers are about to call HR.
Not allowed to have fun at work. Tisk tisk.
Herc, if anyone bothers you, just yell, I'm Captain Kirk. That should get them off your back in a minute.
Followed by soda and brandy.
Give me the brandy.
Yeah, so now it's already 20 degrees below zero on the planet. And they tried to send thermal heaters, but they duplicated and failed to work. So I can understand animals being split into their good side and evil side and humans and everything. Sentient creatures, it makes sense. But for an object, how does the transporter differentiate the good part of the object and the bad part?
What if they duplicated and then it made like one overload and one was out of power?
Okay. Yeah,
Like
maybe
that's
something
it.
binary like that. That makes sense.
Like that would be the opposite, or if it was duplicated non-functional, and so the heating unit became one that was just non-functional because the battery was drained, and the other one was like an air conditioning unit, which was absolutely useless.
There you go.
That's what I got. That's what I'm thinking. But
And go ahead.
Herc, you did it. Herc yelled, "I'm Captain Kirk," and it worked. HR has left
Nice.
him alone for the day.
Yeah, they'll stand away. They'll start wondering, but they'll give you some breathing room.
Yes,
Hmm.
law enforcement is on its way, wondering what the crazy person is doing in that cubicle.
Law enforcement. I was just thinking the psychologist.
Yeah.
And Spock makes a great point when they start talking about this. Apparently, this double, however different in temperament, has your knowledge of the ship, its crew, its devices. This being the case, perhaps we can outguess him by determining his next move. Knowing how the ship is laid out, where would you go to elude a mass search? And Kirk answers that he'd go to engineering, so that's where they go. Spock thinks that they should recruit some help. But whatever happened to Kirk's personality, he still knows that he has to face his other self one on one. And so that's what happens here in this scene.
Instead of having security, right?
Hmm. And sometimes, well, most of the time, but if I'm just here reading the whole script, that would be weird. But sometimes the dialogue is better than anything I have to say. And and so they confront each other.
I really like
And
the use of the stunt doubles. I know Star Trek stunt doubles are kind of a cliche.
mhm,
You'll have to remember in the 1960s when you were watching this on a 13-inch CRT television, you probably wouldn't notice the stunt doubles. But I really like the way that they sort of intercut because you can kind of tell it's not Shatner, but you kind of can't. There's
mhm.
no explicit way. It's not the same way as like in Space Seed when you see the stunt doubles fighting and it's like that's not them.
Well,
But
you'll
with
notice the
this
double
one,
has gray hair in the back.
does he?
If Joe gets a shot of the double, with
I
the
didn't get
back,
a shot of the double. I'm sorry.
No, it's
he's
fine.
got almost like a gray bottom of the bottom. Like if you, for example, like if he had a ponytail, the ponytail would have been gray. But yeah, the double definitely has gray in the back.
Oh, okay.
Cool. That's a good bit of trivia there. And here Kirk says, "You can't hurt me. You can't kill me. You can't. Don't you understand? I'm part of you. You need me. I need you."
I
But
don't need you.
thank you. And that's when Spock shows up just in time.
With the first appearance of, hey, look at that Vulcan neck pinch.
Yeah, very first Vulcan
Right,
neck.
which was Nimoy's idea. Obviously, he said, I think Spock would be above punching or knocking the guy out." That's right, because the script called for him to hit him over the head with a phaser.
That's
Mm-hmm.
correct.
Yes.
And I really do love how Leonard Nimoy plays such a large role in creating the Vulcan culture and you know other and Spock's character in general.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I agree.
But see, like that, just if you go back before the explosion, which really screws up the rest of the episode, uh, like the look of the stunt double whose back is to Shatner and Nimoy, like I buy it. Like that
Mhm.
doesn't look bad, and there is a certain level of awareness, but I like it. I think it's great. I think that the double is good, and I especially like it when he is sort of there miming to Shatner's dialogue when we get to the bridge later on in the episode. But I thought
Right,
that
and they
that
have
I
was a
they're built similarly, so that's good too. They so
yeah.
because I've seen a lot of times in movies and TV shows where the stunt double looks nothing like the actor, and you can really tell. But
Hmm.
no, they do a good job here.
agreed. I didn't even know that this was a double here, so I did get a shot at the double after all.
There you
Oh,
go.
you'll get more probably on the bridge too.
Yay!
So what
And
happens here, Jill?
the phaser, Evil Kirk let off his phaser as he was being pinched, and the transporter's going to be even more effed up. Hey.
It's going to take a week to fix, you say.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll never speak of it again for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, no. It's barely an inconvenience.
Yes, hardly. No. Barely. No trouble at all.
And McCoy decides to bind Evil Kirk from moving because he doesn't know what a tranquilizer will do to his physicality, since he doesn't really understand this whole what's gone on here biologically to Kirk, which makes sense. But that speaks to the mystery of the biology of Evil Kirk and Good Kirk. Where does the mass of each go when he's teleported? Because you can't create what isn't there. So, but none of that is really explained.
No,
okay.
I could make stuff up, but I'm not going to waste everybody's time.
You did last night. I want to hear it. Tell me what you told me last night.
So let's say that the ore, which is magnetic and it has other properties, maybe the ore itself has something to do with gathering extra matter from the planet. It seems like that there has to be a rational explanation if we're gonna go with this. Like being split into two, obviously there is no creation of mass. I think that it has to do something with that ore.
Right, matter cannot be created or destroyed. And
right,
yes, but it has something to do with the ore.
And I think that the ore draws in other matter and then recombines it as they are materializing. But again, this is all just me doing backflips in my noggin to try and justify it.
Well, I appreciate the conjecture, but maybe it's better that we don't know, because when we do learn in the Tuvix episode about the orchard, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. So it's better it'd be a mystery than not make sense.
Okay, I'm in. I'm still not giving up on the shuttlecraft, but I'll give up on the mass.
Mm-hmm. But it still bothers me a bit.
It does. Me too.
And Spock notes that Kirk is rapidly losing his power of decision. And he starts to have the best exposition of the story so far. McCoy says, "You have a point, Spock?" And Spock says, "Yes, always, Doctor. We have here an unusual opportunity to appraise the human mind, or to examine in Earth terms the role of good and evil in a man, his negative side, which you call hostility, lust, violence, and his positive side, which Earth people express as compassion, love, tenderness." And Spock continues, "What is it that makes one man an exceptional leader? We see indications that it's his negative side which makes him strong, that his evil side, if you will, properly controlled and disciplined, is vital to his strength. Your negative side, removed from you, the power of command begins to elude you."
Doesn't McCoy push back and say conjecture and...
Oh yeah, I cut out McCoy.
Well, no, but and isn't that where Spock says, not conjecture, Doctor? I am a man of two worlds. My human side and my Vulcan side at war constantly, but I control them. Something along those lines.
I think it's basically his id. They just don't use that word.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he doesn't say that later, but yes, that is a beautiful point too. I think he.
Oh, is that
later?
later?
Yeah, it's later because I know I copied that too. Yeah, Spock rightly concludes that our negative side is vital to functioning as a leader, but McCoy brings a good counter that good Kirk can still fight with his intellect. And Scotty reports a new problem with the transporter.
There's the white phaser, Jill.
Oh, the white phaser. Oh, yeah. I see.
Oh, yeah, nice. There it is.
Yep.
Very, very beautiful. Okay. And so there's a new problem with the with the transporter. The main circuits...
Everything is broken. Nothing will work for a week.
Yeah, that's what he says. It'll take a week to get a new transporter unit ionizer. And Captain's log, stardate 1673.5. Transporter still inoperable. My negative self is under restraint in sickbay. My own indecisiveness growing. My force of will steadily weakening. On the planet, condition critical. Surface temperature is 75 degrees below zero. Still dropping. Which I understand parts of Canada gets that cold.
Not 120 below.
No, not 120, but here it's saying minus 75.
Oh, okay. Well, what is 75?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Minus 75 Fahrenheit to Celsius.
Yeah, even
You can't review this
cold.
episode without transporting
70 degrees Fahrenheit. Or
that'll be
minus
70
70
below.
degrees.
that'll be
minus 70.
minus 60 Celsius.
Okay. Well, that's wow. Yeah, there are parts. Well, minus 60. I know minus 50. I've heard minus 50 on weather reports, but minus 60. Maybe if you're in the Yukon.
Mm-hmm. It's cold.
It's cold, and Sulu wants some booze.
Oh, is he asking for that yet? Oh, yeah.
Is he
He is right here. He's saying he wants hot coffee or rice wine, which is another term for sake.
Mm-hmm.
Sake, yes.
So he wants some sake. I like sake.
And
too.
if you're cold,
Mhm.
I wouldn't recommend drinking booze because it's going to thin your blood.
Yeah, I know that, but
This is back in the day where they thought. Remember, they even had those dogs that had little barrels of brandy around their necks.
True.
If they found people in the snow. Now we know that the science is different. We know that it actually is bad for a person if they're cold.
yeah, right. So,
Gorilla.
what does Gorilla say? Let me see. I'm gonna actually go through some of the chat that I missed. And let's see. Looks like John Riddle says, looks like me when trying something new on the computer.
When he's yelling, I'm Captain Kirk.
Yeah. The captain has no drawers. Sensor blinky time. Oh. David G. Sound says, Kirk has lady friends. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, okay, so I did read some of those. Gorilla's Random Thoughts says, who loved the ship more? I didn't see Kirk start a bar fight with a bunch of Klingons over an insult of the Enterprise. Yes, that is exactly what I was thinking of when I asked that question, because I do know they both love the ship, and that I specifically did think about the Tribbles when Scotty, punches out a Klingon for
Well, maybe they both
for insulting the
love
ship.
Maybe they both love it equally, but in two different ways.
Yeah, that's something I think it's worth exploring.
Well, okay, so Scotty started a fight with a bunch of Klingons over the ship. Kirk fell out of love with women over the ship.
Right.
So I would say Kirk loves it more.
Dave G. Sound says, well, he let them go 2 quarters afterwards. Kirk knew what was up. And Gorilla's Random Thought says, that telemarketer was so rude. He hung up on me, and all I got out was to listen here. Okay. Listen here. All right.
Temper your evil side.
Dave G. Sound says, I love telemarketers. Answer, control room. Hello, sir. This is Mr. Dave. Control room. What do you need? They hang up and they don't call back. Gorilla's Random Thought says, you guys are describing a Tuesday. Just put on an extra sweater and get to work.
Put on a hat.
Oh, and hello in the chat too, Dalek.
Hello, Dalek.
Ahoy, Dalek.
Dave G. Sound says, if I were dying in the snow and a doggy walked up to me with a barrel of brandy, I'm okay with that. I did the research and it checks out.
Well, if you're gonna die, might as well die happy.
Yeah, that's part of what I'm thinking too. It's a bit of a spirit lifter, even if it isn't scientifically sound.
Right, they'll find you with a smile on your face.
Mm-hmm. And part of survival too is keeping relaxed a bit, not being too stressed. So maybe a balance of it. Don't drink too much.
Blanket in a bottle.
Mhm. And Sulu calls back for an update even after this. So, but Captain Kirk is floundering to respond, so Spock takes up the task to give Sulu the reality of the situation, that he needs to hold on and use his survival procedures, one of which is to use your phasers to heat up rocks.
And they end up draining a bunch of phasers doing that, don't they?
Yeah, they have 3 left that are still working.
And their equipment's also starting to fail. I know the Sulu says he has trouble with the communicator.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. It doesn't get cold here often, but it did get below 32 Fahrenheit, which I know isn't cold to anybody, but it's cold to us. And the gas tank stopped working. I'm like, what's going on? Because they're not tempered for the cold.
My phone will stop working when it gets too cold. I've noticed I'll get a screen saying that it's too cold. I have to actually warm it up and rub my hands all over it.
But mostly living in South Texas where it's hot, I encounter
Oh,
the opposite problem where it's too hot and things like my camera, like a real camera, will overheat.
oh, absolutely. My GoPro does that.
Anyway, I don't know why I went on that tangent. Evil Kirk is dying in sick bay. Oh yeah, that's what's happening.
Meanwhile, back in sickbay.
McCoy has just figured out that the body is weakened in its duplication.
And
Go
we
to
get a
Kirk.
split screen effect.
Yes, and this is a very well done effect. I don't.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. For the time, yes.
Go to Kirk tries to give evil Kirk some comfort before he passes out. And in turn, McCoy provides good Kirk with the support that he needs, agreeing with him that he needs to integrate with his evil side. And so I need the last slides. Let me grab those. And that's this one. Just a moment. Bear with me. And McCoy says, yes, human. A lot of what he is makes you the man you are. God forbid I should have to agree with Spock, but he was right. Without the negatives. How does McCoy even say these lines?
Well, Spock insults him in this episode too. There's one point where Spock says, "For once, I actually believe you, or I agree with you." That's it. For once, I agree with you. That's
I
right.
love that. I love that too. There's a lot of stuff that I'm missing out because I don't read the script verbatim. Because I mean, if I'm going to read the script, just go watch the episode.
No, but it's great because already this early in the
So-
series, they're already establishing that little back and forth between Spock and McCoy. I love it.
So if you're, one of the only people in the universe who hasn't seen this episode, go and you're just watching this review, go see this episode because it has so many of those character moments that really define the trio. They've got it down by this point, and it's quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Without the negative side, McCoy continues. Without the negative side, you wouldn't be the captain. You couldn't be, and you'd know it. Your strength of command lies mostly in him. And McCoy also reminds him that that the good Kirk has the goodness, the logic, intelligence, and theorizes that is also why good Kirk is able to be courageous, while evil Kirk is frightened. And Spock explains how they figured out to repair the transporter, even though Scotty was just recently quoting that it was going to take a week. They figured out a way around it.
Well, I guess that's how he got the reputation of being a miracle worker.
True.
It's
going to take a week. You mean 6 hours, Scotty? Aye.
A week. That means 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. 30 minutes or it's free. Don't you mean it can be 15 minutes? Aye.
Well, I mean, he does explain on TNG that he pads things out, but this seems a little extreme.
Still early in his tenure on the Enterprise here.
Spock says we've attached some bypass and leader circuits to compensate for the difference. So I guess they just jumped over the problems somehow.
Yeah, Spock looks upset there.
Yeah, tied directly into the impulse engines. There shouldn't be more than a 5-point variation in the velocity balance. I suggest we send the animal through, Captain. So they're gonna test. I'm gonna.
Ugh.
No, don't do it.
Don't reach in there. I like how there's the one stuffed animal dog, and then there's the other one being like, "What's going on, guys? What's
You
up?"
got. There's a toy here for me.
Yeah.
They send the unicorn pup through. He is combined, but not successfully.
No dogs were harmed in the making of this episode.
Right. The dog. Both dogs are fine in real life, but in the
Yes.
show,
Well, no, now they're dead.
now
Besides, yeah,
okay.
and we get McCoy's famous
Well,
line there. So yeah.
well, that's just the passage of time. Yes, he's dead, Jim.
Yes,
Or
we get,
it's dead, Jim. Well, he's dead, Jim.
he's dead, Jim. I think
He's
he
dead,
says.
Jim. You're right. He's dead, Jim. And in honor of that, actually, since you remember we did my very first live stream was with you about McCoy. So in
Yes.
honor of the very first time that he says this, I have this clip of him
Great.
saying it several
Yay.
times.
Perfect.
He's dead. He's dead, Jim. She's dead, Jim. He's dead. She's dead. It's dead. She's dead. He's dead.
And it did not include this clip.
It didn't. It's weird, right?
Yeah, the seed's not there.
No, this is the first one. So
I remember doing a high school presentation talking about the key of public speaking and trying to convince during speeches. How do you do that? And my point was repetition is always beneficial, and I played that exact clip. My teacher loved it.
nice. Dave G Sound says, if I was dying in the snow, oh yeah, right. He would like the brandy or whatever. Grills Random Thought says, my survival kit is a bottle of whiskey. If I'm gonna freeze to death, might as well be comfortable. And John Rendell is like me. Anything under 60 degrees Fahrenheit is too cold. Yes. I didn't know that there was anyone like me out there. Una Corn Dog. Yes, and the Nerdporeal life form, you're absolutely correct. It's the first time.
Ahoy, Nerdporio.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because that, I mean, even DeForest Kelly spoke about it at the conventions that it became a running joke whenever he said that they tried it very, very hard not to use that line in any of the later movies or anything else. So yeah,
Well,
they went out of their way to avoid it.
They very specifically didn't use it in Wrath of Khan because it would be wrong to use a line that is somewhat that has become so much comedic in nature after
Yes.
Spock dies. You just
Especially
can't do that.
yeah, like after Scotty's nephew, that wouldn't have been very, it wouldn't have been very nice.
Yeah, it's a very it's got to be used at just the right moments, and so I'm glad they didn't use it for any of the big moments in the movies. That was smart.
Especially when
And-
Spock died, right?
Yeah. And
He's dead already. Isn't that what he said in Wrath of Khan? No, that was Scotty that said that. That's right.
Scotty
In fact, I heard
says it. That's right.
Right. In fact, that's what I heard is they gave the line to Scotty to avoid Bones saying it.
Nerdporeal is all over this in the chat. For anyone who's wondering on the replay, yeah,
Right.
DeForest refused to say he's dead Jim in Wrath of Khan,
Yeah,
and
he knew
follows
better.
up with hence Scotty saying he's
Yes.
dead already.
That is true. McCoy wouldn't say it. Yes. That's just
Yeah.
like in Star Trek.
And the writers listened.
In Star Trek 6, the line when they were, if you remember right, it's when they met the Klingon, and then the ambassador was going to be aboard the Enterprise. They wanted her to say the line, "Guess who's coming to dinner," and she refused to. So they gave it to Chekhov instead. So when
Mhm.
they filmed that shot, you'll see him say it, but her in the background looking at him. And the reason why she refused is because of the movie with Stanley Kramer, the annotation of that. It's a movie about a biracial married couple,
Mhm.
and she didn't want to go there, so that's why she refused. But originally, that was Uhura's line.
Hmm. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that one. Oh, okay. That's why you mentioned it. Because
Oh,
Pearl did.
there you. Oh, no Newtorial. No,
Oh,
I didn't know
no, he just
Newtorial had seen
said.
that, but yeah,
Oh, yeah.
perfect timing. Yes, thank you.
Nice. And Pearl goes on to say, I didn't know the movie existed until after I saw that. I rented the movie for that reason.
Oh no, I've seen that movie years. I'm a big Stanley Kramer fan, and it's got Sidney Poitier and the lady who played Louise Jefferson, Isabel Sanford, was in that movie as well. A fantastic movie. Kate
Spencer
Hepburn.
Tracy as well, right?
Oh, absolutely yes. Spencer Tracy.
So I really love the captain's logs in this episode. I don't always read them, but this one, captain's log, stardate 1673.1, entry made by Second Officer Spock. Captain Kirk retains command of this vessel, but his force of will rapidly fading. Condition of landing party critical. Transporter unit still under repair. And McCoy sends the animal to have an autopsy. This is the second time he's mentioned it, so I believe that Spock is certain that the animal died due to shock, and that Kirk won't, because his intelligence controls his fear to prevent the shock. McCoy has to question it. He says, what if the transporter is still malfunctioning and Kirk dies? He he believes waiting for an autopsy would be safer, and this is usually when Kirk remembers the men he has to save, but Spock has to remind him. The acting here and throughout this episode is so phenomenal by Shatner. Even when he almost gives a look of resolve, it immediately shifts to concern and doubt of what Spock thinks because Kirk doesn't trust himself anymore to make any decisions. And this is where Spock says what you said earlier, Scotty.
Mhm.
Being split in two halves is no theory with me, Doctor. I have a human half, you see, as well as an alien half, submerged, constantly at war with each other. Personal experience, Doctor. I survive it because my intelligence wins over both, making them live together. Your intelligence would enable you to survive as well.
I really like that.
Me too. That's why it's a
Yeah,
verbatim here.
yeah. I think
Just
this is our first time we get our sampling or explanation of Spock's two inner halves that are constantly at war with each other. Where he's, even more he's establishing that character, and the character is getting more depth.
Indeed.
And the white phaser. Like I said, you'll be getting a lot of phaser shots because they're all wearing phasers in this episode.
Through some difficulty, Kirk decides to go with the transporter since he's not giving up command. If he can't quickly decide to risk his own life, then he realizes, still having that intelligence, he realizes he won't be able to succeed as captain. So that's why he decides to go with the transporter, I think. And then this part is a bit unbelievable to me, but Sulu is still conscious, even though the temperatures on the planet are minus 170 degrees Fahrenheit.
which is minus 84 Celsius.
Thank you. The lowest the lowest body temperature recorded where someone survived, their body temperature got down to 56 degrees, I think. And I would imagine 117 would take it pretty low. But I don't really know the biology of it, how far down. I don't know what. I guess it depends on how warm you're able to get.
Well, actually, there was a study, unfortunately, done by the Nazis on how much a body
Yeesh.
can handle. Yeah. So that is now medical knowledge because of the Nazis. I just don't
Well-
remember the details.
I didn't find that research.
It is there.
Yeah,
It's
no, I believe
grizzly
you.
and-
I just
yeah,
I didn't look for that long, and I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Well, and also don't forget, Captain America went into the ice in the 40s, and he wasn't resuscitated until 2011 or something like that. So,
Well, I know. On a side note too, on Mount Everest, people often freeze up there, and hikers often they'll find frozen people who have been there for many, many years
Wow.
because they're so high up. Nobody goes up to retrieve the bodies.
Yeah, if I'm climbing Mount Everest and I see that, I'm going back down. Like,
Time to turn around. That's your
I'm
detour
done.
sign. You turn.
I'm a big fan of the buddy system when climbing mountains.
I think I'll just watch documentaries.
Nobody wins in documentaries. It's all so true to life.
Those blankets don't really look too warm. You know, it would make more sense if they had taken some kind of something down with them to deal with the cold, since
well,
they know it's a danger.
Well, I kept thinking that too, but I guess it all comes down to they didn't know they were going to be stuck there overnight, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
True.
They thought that they could just be there in the day and beam back up. And
Right.
Be okay.
They thought just getting there. They thought they were just there to get a few samples and then they'd be right out.
But yeah, no, that didn't happen. Anyway, this also helps give Kirk the resolve he needs to go through the transporter, because he sees Sulu is dying. But evil Kirk is not so brave. Evil Kirk, he's afraid to die. So he knocks out good Kirk and somehow finds a duplicate command green shirt. That is a little bit
I
weird.
think he takes Kirk's because it shows in the next scene where it looks like he's tucking it in, but I could be wrong.
But where did good Kirk get another one?
I know. When he shows up on the bridge, I thought that too, but I don't. Go ahead. Sorry, Jill. Maybe he stops by his quarters and changes.
yeah.
Before we take care of this emergency, I have to go put on a shirt.
Well, it looked just like the other one, so you can't tell. Yes.
For me, it would have made more sense if they had just switched outfits.
Makes sense, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also, doesn't he scratches Kirk's face as well?
Yes.
Oh, and here we go. Yeah, and so evil Kirk regaining some level of composure.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is the point where as she was coming off the turbo lift, it looked like he was adjusting his shirt. Like I thought he had just put it on. I don't know.
Yeah, he did. This is evil Kirk, and Rand is confronting her assaulter, and fortunately for her, very last time.
But he infers that he's going to be like, you don't mind if I come by your cabin later? And she's like, I do, but you are the captain. I can't really say much.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, awkward again, right?
Yeah, she doesn't want to make him angry, so she says whatever he wants to hear, whether it's the truth or not.
Well, and also, I forget who said it in the chat. It might have been Nerdporial, but big shout out to Johnny Farrell, the guy with the bug eyes.
Oh, yeah, he's here.
And Captain Kirk says, we're leaving. Oh. We are out of here. F this noise and F everyone on the planet.
Yes, he does do that, doesn't he?
Well, in a different way, but yes.
Well, yes. That's why I would be a terrible, terrible human if I were split into my good side and evil side. My evil side would be more fun to hang out with, but my good side, just napping.
And I guess Uhura's on vacation, or maybe her shift is over.
Cuddling your dog.
Maybe she's out with the shuttlecraft.
Right. She. That's why they don't have the shuttlecraft. She's out on a mission.
She's at a communication symposium at Starbase, let's say K5.
Literally read my mind for that one.
Oh, really? Sorry.
No, that's great. I love it. Anyway, evil Kirk tries to take over the bridge. Tries to leave the landing party to freeze to death on the planet, but McCoy enters with good Kirk to explain that that good Kirk was attacked. Seeing no way out, evil Kirk throws an enormous tantrum, which includes tossing a crewman about.
eyeliner.
Yes. Yeah,
Well, plus,
actually, I think the eyeliner is even heavier in this scene.
it is. Well, it gets darker throughout the episode, more evil it gets. But that last frame you got, that's one of the rare shots we get where the main viewer is not lit up. You can tell it's a rear projection.
Oh, no, it wasn't a rear projection until season 3.
Oh, really?
It was, yeah, it was just a like it was a blank that
Empty space?
they would sort of in post put things on the screen. But it wasn't until season 3 that it was actually a functioning rear projection view screen on the bridge of the Enterprise, if I remember correctly.
You'd think they would have showed a static shot of stars at least, but I guess it was just white.
Mm-hmm.
But also during that tantrum, I really like the way that it syncs up the dialogue from Shatner with the stunt double. Like even the breathing and the cadence of the stunt double fits with the dialogue. Like he takes a deep breath before he yells. And
Yeah.
there's your
There's the
ponytail.
gray
Good
hair.
call.
Right, that's
Yep.
gray hair.
You're right. Gerd Kirk says, "Can half a man live?" And they continue to discuss the way he described, and that together that they will both live. Goodkirk tells him, and Goodkirk also throws away the phaser and embraces his evil side. They travel on the transporter and are successfully merged, and the landing party makes it back.
Get those man up fast.
And
Sulu has no toes.
yeah, Sulu is a popsicle.
Yep. A Sulusicle.
And then we have a slightly
And the cringiest moment of the
oh
episode.
my god, yeah, this is a really awkward ending. Like we're just gonna they don't really say anything bad, but the implication is too snarky. It's just weird.
Yeah, Spock has a bit of a smirk and says, the imposter had quite some interesting qualities, wouldn't you say,
I think
Yeoman?
up until this point, they did a really great job of presenting what it's like to go through sexual assault, but then here they're trying to make a joke of it, which is kind of strange.
Yes.
Maybe this is why.
And also considering the history of Grace Lee Whitney, it's kind of tone deaf.
Yeah. Oh boy. I'm sorry.
And Nerdporial says, and she gave Spock a dirty look as she walked away. I didn't notice the I was too busy reeling from the seriously. I will F you up, Vulcan.
That's good. I didn't notice that either. That is a good balance if she did make that kind of face to him.
I'll have to double check, but still, it's a very questionable, of its time sort of line.
Yeah, sorry. Today I
You
kind
like
of have
forceful men, don't you?
Yeah. That's definitely that's why I don't criticize it too much, because it's the 60s. You know, I have to remember to step out of time a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And Sulu didn't even lose an ear, says the Nerdporial life form. Agreed.
And so I missed some chat here. And I have allergies today, so I've been rubbing my eyes a bit watery. So I'm not reading anything at the moment. Give me just a second.
Oh, okay.
To find my eyes. Okay. Can someone read that real quick? I don't know.
Yeah. Pop culture, do you want to do it?
All right.
I'll take that as a yes.
The Nerdporial life form says, my parents were kids when that movie came out, so it's natural. I'd never heard of it until I saw it at the video store to rent.
Okay, and they're talking about the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Yes. Which I recommend everybody. Stanley Kramer was a fantastic director. And it has Spencer Tracy, who could memorize a script after reading it once. I beat them all up and sort it out later, huh? Put them all in the brig, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, put all the evil ones in the brig.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done that. You're right. I did think about that. How fun that would be. How evil Sulu.
Yeah, but what if there's another thing? If they would have, let's say if they would have said that, what if they would have said we're out of time, we need to beam them all up regardless of what's going on with the transporter? And what if the transporter merged some of them? Like two characters into one. You never know.
Oh, right, like Tuvix. Oh my God. Well,
Or
Tuvix,
but
or
maybe
I
we
guess
wouldn't
that
have
happened.
gotten Tuvix.
Sulisher, because it'd be Sulu and Fisher.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, we have no idea what happens when you transport more than one person off the planet. You're absolutely right.
Nerdporial Lifeform goes on to say, I love this moment when Spock pulls Kirk aside to tell him that as a captain, he can't be anything less than perfect. Too bad New Trek forgot that.
Yeah, true. So true.
Absolutely. And the Nerdporial Lifeform continues, I learned from this episode quite a bit. The understanding that we are capable of good as well as bad. All of us. And it's how we choose to live. And that each of those streaks makes us who we are, a combination of both. Yes, this episode is very heavy in the philosophy, and it is beginning that Star Trek kind of way to examine humanity through a science fiction lens.
Mm-hmm.
And the Nerdporial Lifeform says, good Kirk equals green, bad Kirk equals yellow, cowardice, like it's yellow to be it's cowardly to be yellow, I guess.
I would agree with you, except for the fact that Captain Kirk wears gold throughout the rest of the series, aside from a couple of episodes. And so, but I do like, for this specific episode, I do like that analysis.
Me too. I never considered that. Gorilla says, you guys are hitting all the no words. Hey.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was hitting them because I don't see a reason not to talk about things that happen. And if YouTube wants to talk to me about it, they can send me an email.
I don't think there's any problem. It's also a matter of context, and we're using it properly, so it's not like we're exploiting the words.
Right.
And as Uhura says in The Savage Curtain, in our day and age, we have learned not to become frightened of words.
Yes, we've learned not to fear words. That's right. John Rendell says, climbing Mount Everest. I subscribe to Homer Simpson's philosophy. It's better to watch stuff than do stuff.
Can't win, don't try.
Take care, Dave G. Sound.
Okay. See you later, Dave G. Sound. Gotta go. Wife's shuttle is arriving. See you all soon. Can you read this message from Dave G?
Go for it, Scotty.
Dave G says, you can't go back down, though. Unless you are your own funded expedition on Mount Everest, I would assume, you are embedded with your party climbing Everest. If your pal drops dead, that's the deal. Exactly, but I would like to embed with a team that if I drop dead, they're like, sorry guys, we can't keep going. We got to take this body back down. Like, I don't care.
Abandon the whole expedition for one person?
Yes!
Just don't bury that person under a pile of rocks, please.
Yeah, or unless you have a spare Starfleet insignia in which you can put up top of it.
Okay, do they all risk their lives dragging your carcass down the mountain, or just leave it?
Yes! Put me on a sled!
Or just throw you down.
Yeah, I was going to say throw them off a cliff, right? That'd be the fastest way down.
I just say and get me off. I don't want someone else to find me.
Right, animals.
It's going to be like being on Rura Pente or something.
What's interesting is, have any of you heard of the Oregon Trail?
Yes.
Of course.
I've heard of the game and the history.
Right. They used to have so many dead bodies along the road. They would put them in the road to help get the wagons over the mud and through the mud.
Well, wow, they didn't include that in the game of Oregon Trail. When you figure out how to ford a river, they don't say, "Well, do you want to use the dead bodies in your, that you've collected that died in your party to ford this river?"
Right. So if they got because nowadays if a car gets stuck in the mud, you put wood under it or like a piece of wood or some rocks under the tire. But back then they used bodies, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I suppose maybe I'm being a little too genteel with the situation, and I should refer to my, after I pass away or die in battle, look at myself as a little bit of a Klingon. It is just an empty shell now. We have no use for it.
Yes. Yes. You've already been accepted into Stovacor or wherever else Klingons go if they're not allowed in there.
Target. Feklar.
Mega Copper gives this episode a B plus, and
Yeah.
we'll be getting to the ratings in just a minute. Nerdpro Lifeform agrees with Gorilla about something.
Oh, can I do this one?
Yes, please.
Nerdporial Lifeform in the chat says, by the way, I said, give me the brandy! I have too much fun doing that. It's great.
I have too much.
I'm Captain Kirk.
I have too much fun listening to you do this.
Thank you.
Gorilla's Random Thoughts says, if two people were merged, then they would be called Tuvix, and Janeway would have off them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And rightly so. Bird of Prey, as mentioned before, abominations will be vaporized on sight.
So have they covered that in future Star Trek, where two people were merged? Did they do that?
Yes.
Oh,
That was
I didn't see that.
Oh, it's a Voyager episode.
Yeah, it's a Voyager episode. It was the topic for my Friday stream.
Okay, so it was a transporter accident, right?
And it was Scotty's idea, and I think it was an accident that it happened to be right before The Enemy Within. So we went from one transporter accident to another, and I think actually The Enemy Within really informs on Tuvix, because Evil Kirk doesn't want to die either.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but obviously it was a mistake, so it has to be fixed. And so was Tuvix.
I wonder if Evil Kirk remembers the assault on Rand, and then when they are reassembled together as regular Kirk, that regular Kirk has that sort of memory within him.
Or guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like remorse and guilt for actually attempting to assault his yeoman.
He dismisses her at the end, so we're not given any
Take care, John Rendell.
indication of that. That's a good question. Yes. See you later, John Rendell. He says, I gotta run myself. Great show. See you later. Have a great day, all.
Well, that's where the shuttle was. Nerdporial Lifeform says to Dave, see ya. I had no idea she's an astronaut. No, she's not an astronaut. She's a moon shuttle conductor.
Son of a Red Shirt said, got here just in time for the closing theme. Just like so many times, getting home late and wanting to watch the broadcast. Aw. Oh, I did get more of the closing theme here, written by Richard Matheson, created and produced by Gene Roddenberry. Mm-hmm.
No,
So
no.
let's look at this bit.
No.
That's another thing that New Trek is seriously lacking is top tier writers like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome writing. The Nerdporo Lifeform says, too bad. People now fear words. Humanity has regressed. And yeah, you could say that every day.
I don't think they fear them. I think they just use it as an excuse to attack others.
They use them as a weapon. You're right.
Yes.
Oh, that's a whole other conversation. Words, in my opinion, and I do not speak for the anti-derivative Jill channel, I do not find words to be violence.
Oh, I don't either. But they can be used as...
to incite violence. Right.
Yeah.
To incite violence. Yeah.
Oh, it can be used to incite violence, but if I'm in a conversation with another individual and I use harsh language, and I don't mean necessarily swears, but I mean that if I am particularly pointed in my vocabulary, I'm probably choosing my words specifically to affect an attack.
Well,
but that attack,
debate.
a verbal attack, I still don't think is violence. If I hurt your feelings, I probably meant to, but hurting your feelings, again, not violence.
Right. Sticks and stones.
You can call me a chuckle monkey all you want, but if I actually have to like retreat and run away because you've used an ad hominem attack, then that shows a weakness in my character as opposed to a resolve in my argument.
Right, exactly. When somebody leaves honest debate and resorts to name calling, then I know I'm not dealing with someone of great intelligence, so I'd leave the conversation at
Well,
that
and
point.
not to be rude or presumptuous with anyone else, but if I use an ad hominem attack to express my frustration, that doesn't necessarily dismiss my argument. It
Not
just
if
shows
it's in conjunction with the argument. I'm saying just name calling without
right.
any kind of logic
I think that we're
or
just
knowledge.
my observation of modern argument is that you find yourself in more of a rhetorical discussion surrounding the rhetorical arguments, whether it be ad
And
hominem,
that's my problem
straw
too.
man,
It's
gaslighting. It's
when
like,
people get into the ad hominems and they don't bring any receipts. They don't give you any references. Like give me some references to what you're talking about and why you believe what you're saying is true. Otherwise, this conversation is circular and we're going to end this conversation exactly where we started.
yeah, yes, it's frustrating.
Mhm.
And again, if you're using words in a particular way, you probably intend to as an enlightened debater.
I don't know if you're so enlightened.
Oh, I
If
want to
you
read this one. I want to. I
no.
want to do Son of Red
Go ahead.
Shirt. Okay. She'll be dragging your carcass down the mountain when she comes. When she comes. Oh, you did it wrong, but I'll keep going. She'll ad hominem. She'll be dragging your carcass down the mountain when she comes. She'll be dragging your carcass down the mountain, dragging your carcass down the mountain. She'll be dragging your carcass down the mountain when she comes. I hope that was public
Yay.
domain.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Hopefully.
That's awesome. Thank you.
No, thank you, son of a red shirt.
Yes. Dalek says, I have seen this episode, but I barely remember it. See it again. It's great.
It's okay.
I think it's good. Girl is Random Thought says, Scotty is going
to Greythor.
Greythor.
Greythor? Grethor. With Theklar.
And that's where John Randall had to leave. And Nerd Portal says, Evil Kirk did nothing wrong.
Well, except for the whole,
yeah,
unwilling
I know,
sperm
right.
recipients.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, he did something very, very wrong.
He almost killed Good Kirk as well. He stole brandy, and he wore makeup.
Yeah, Evil Kirk, I don't think has any remorse. That's all in Good Kirk. Yes, correct. Mega Cropper says, can you leave your episode rating before you log off? Pete?
Yes, thank you, Mega Cropper.
Oh, for sure. And ahoy, Mega Crocker.
Yes, we will. We will. I'm just checking through the chat here. Nerdporo Lifeform says he gave this episode an A. And that it didn't work in Aliens. What should we use? Harsh language.
Nice pull.
And Son of a Red Shirt says, hey, Scotty, did you hear that shell maker Jean-Luc Godard passed away today? You should do a breathless watch party.
I did hear that Jean-Luc Godard passed away today.
Oh, Godard.
Yeah. I have never seen Breathless. I do want to look. He was 91 years of age, and he was a super influential French filmmaker. And yeah.
No, I didn't hear about that myself. The Nerdport says, Scotty, you're a chuckle monkey.
Guilty as charged.
Just Joe 47 says, I remember this plot device being used on Mutant X. Emma, the one with psychic powers, was split into her passive good and aggressive evil halves. And I think I love this kind of storytelling because it's a great way to examine ourselves. And I love that they use it in Star Trek.
This is a complete aside, but did you guys ever see that episode of the Smurfs where there was like a bee that stung the Smurfs' tails and then they changed from blue into like red? and they all became evil, and then they had to get cured by the end. This episode always reminds me of that. And it's like, I don't want Captain Cook to be bad. It's kind of like I didn't want Brainy Smurf to be bad.
Smurfs were on before Rocky and Bullwinkle, so they were like at 5 a.m. And if I woke up early enough for the Smurfs, I went back to sleep, and then woke back up for Rocky and Bullwinkle at 6 a.m.
Fair enough.
I'm glad you like Rocky and Bullwinkle, Jill. I loved it as well when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess they only played the really old cartoons early in the morning, and when I discovered that, I had a reason to get up that early.
And if you'd like to learn all about it, you can tune in Saturday on the Phantasmagorium show, where we will be having our Gargamel podcast. Gargamel did nothing wrong.
Potato Revan says, "Oh, hello, Potato Revan. You argue points once you get personal, you're already lost." I agree with that.
Doesn't mean
That's
I can't call you
usually-
an a-hole.
I know, exactly. No, I know. I've heard you debate before, Scotty. You do.
Right.
You
Usually when
do
I
a
see
mix of your arguments with
usually
that.
when I see
Sometimes-
personal attacks.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, no,
No, I
no,
was just
after
gonna-
you.
I was just gonna say the only time I ever see people personally attack others is when they don't have an argument to stand on. Is what it is.
Well, shut up.
So yeah, out of desperation they'll do that. You know.
Yeah, like Evil Kirk, tantruming, hitting things, and throwing books down. The most evil thing to do to books. The Nerdporial Lifeform says, his very first film, Breathless, is an excellent place to start. And as a lover of sci-fi, you should definitely check out Alphaville. He did Forge French New Wave Cinema.
I love
Alpha-
Alphaville.
So do I. Fantastic movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
If you're a fan of Blade Runner, you should check out Alphaville.
and I should check out Alphaville. Hello in the chat to Lenrod.
Hey, Lenrod.
And
Tiger
Tiger
Stripes.
Stripes! Woohoo!
Hello there.
What's the matter, you? Unbeaten and untied. Yeah, so that's from Rocky and Bullwinkle. That's great. Dalek451 says, something like this happened in Voyager when B'Elanna Torres, when she was split into her human and Klingon halves. Yes, but I think that was not a transporter accident that time, but I don't remember what it was, because I
Yeah, I
haven't seen
thought it
Voyager in a while.
that was
So they-
during the
So
that
they
was during the
revisited
30th
this
anniversary of Star Trek. 30th anniversary? I think so. Maybe 40th, but yeah, it makes more sense. No, yeah, I guess 30th. And yeah, B'Elanna gets split into her Klingon half and her human half. My only problem with that is that I find B'Elanna Torres much more attractive when she is half Klingon, half human. Like I think that B'Elanna Torres is a smoke show, so I would never want those two things to be separated.
That's fair. But it's just for one episode, so you can survive.
Yes, I will. Thank you for reassuring.
The Son of a Red Shirt says, to Just Joe 47, Mutant X. I remember that show. Good times. The blonde girl was from Vancouver. That's her name. Herc 130 says, Natasha was my first crush as a kid. Boris kept getting in the way. Rocky always saved the day. That's nice. Good poetry. Nerdpoil says, the one where her Klingon half gets killed and the doctor somehow puts the genetic material into her human half to make her whole again? Oh, God. Okay. See, Voyager science is just like hand waving. Like, you get Charlie Brown's tree and the kids just wave their hands and then it's a magical, perfect Christmas tree. That's Voyager science.
Yeah. Oh, and by the time we get to Voyager, I think that there had been a certain level of franchise fatigue.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh my God, I can't wait for Saturday Night Star Trek Voyager. Dalek451 says, only difference is that it was not a transporter accident. It was done deliberately.
Yeah, now that you mention it, Dalek, it was something that they had to separate her human and Klingon halves to save her life, I think.
Yes, and so my final thoughts on this episode were that as an audience, we're made to fill in the blanks as to how a person, creature, or object is split into their good and evil parts, because None of that is truly extrapolated in the story, other than to say there's some yellow magnetic ore. But also, the landing party surviving 117 degrees below zero is a little bit unbelievable. However, it is the performance from Kirk, Spock, and McCoy that makes this episode a classic that will shine forever for me, and I love it very much. It is the first Star Trek episode to examine the goodness in evil and not afraid to depict also the badness in the evil as well, almost to, very, very uncomfortable levels. Shatner does a stellar job splitting his personality and behaving timid and indecisive, and eventually turning directly to Spock when he needs to make a choice, which is why it is extra powerful at the end, when he is able to make the right choice on his own. It also lends credibility to Spock believing that they have their captain back when he returns and orders the landing party sent up. Because Spock doesn't even question if he has his captain back. He just knows. The acting, the writing, the performances, everything was just so perfect that I let some of the science go for it. Just based on the beauty of it, I give this episode an A minus. It's gorgeous, and if anyone ever doubted that Shatner was Captain Kirk, he proves it emphatically here by showing that not only is he our captain, but he as an actor can imagine what it's like for different parts of him to have to compete. So
Excellent thoughts.
thank you.
I gave it an A. I thought it was a wonderful episode, and it pretty much said everything for me. We finally get our trio there. We know that our trio is established of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and the fantastic acting, the range, like I said earlier, of William Shatner. It's perfect. By this point, yes, when they did casting, they got the right person there. There's no doubt about that. William Shatner, I don't know, it's almost, it's like the character was written for him. Even before you would think they had him in mind when they wrote the character. I guess is the best way I could say it. But I couldn't imagine anybody else in the role besides him, and I love the episode. That's why I gave it an A. We got our first transporter accident. So apparently Richard Matheson inspired the transporter accidents because he wrote this episode, and this is the first episode that used a transporter accident.
Well, he does it well, but
Absolutely.
it has its issues, but he doesn't belabor it to in such a way that makes it ridiculous.
Well, I agree. I just didn't know how many times they had exploited the same plot in the later series.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
And I get to be the jerk. Call me Evil Scott. I give this a C plus. I find the contrivances with the technology, and while I'm willing to hand wave away no shuttlecraft when there's a blatant shuttle bay on the back of the ship. That's a little much, but I know that that's cost, so it's not a big one. They blow up the transporter circuits in engineering, and they say it's going to take a week to fix. And after the commercial
True.
break, they say, "Never mind. Remember that?
It's okay.
It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal." And then I think that I give it a C plus based on performance altogether. I think that Janice Yeoman Rand, we're not on a first name basis. Yeoman Rand walking around with a captain that potentially assaulted her, or at least a version of him did. I find that to be rather disturbing, and the sort of kiss off at the end, for lack of a better term, the dismissal of Yeoman Rand at the end, I found rather disheartening.
Yeah,
there are
that's
some
fair.
great character things in terms of, as you said, pop culture curator, in terms of the id, the ego, and the super ego, and the discussion of the nature of humanity. But there are so many things watching this episode, I kind of have to reset and suspend my disbelief one too many times, probably three too many times. Why did the transporter break? Dunno. Magnetic ore. Okay. Who started the transporter up again to get the second materialization? Is that just a thing it did on his own? Dunno. Why do you have not internal ship sensors? Dunno. Like nothing about this. Like it's a great character study, but the logic of the episode, as far as I'm concerned, like if the performances were crap, like if this was the alternative factor,
Mhm.
like it's a D minus. But because of the performances of uh, Kirk, Shatner, DeForest Kelly, and then also the incorporation of the Vulcan neck pinch in terms of Star Trek lore, it is the character things that elevate it. I find the plot to be clunky and a little bit too. Why does this happen? Because of plot.
Very good. Thank you. And
Oh, cheers.
I kind of, if the performances weren't as fantastic as they were, I would have given this a B minus, because the reason why I still rate it higher, even given some of the shoddiness of the science fiction, is because I think that it explores some ideas that have never really been explored before at this point in science fiction on
Agreed.
television. And so it gets some bonus points just for that.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I don't mean to be a downer on it, but I sort
Oh
of
no,
and
it's
also
totally fine.
this is also one of those episodes that I've seen so
Hmm.
many times that it may have faded in terms of my appreciation simply because I've seen it so many times. That it's not new or exciting. It's almost something that lives rent free in the back of my noggin anyway.
Hmm. And you can quote it better than anybody, so that's
I really want to yell,
that
give
makes
me the
sense.
brandy.
You're allowed to do that if there's a lull in the conversation.
No, I'll wait till later.
You wait till later. Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it has to be the right moment. You're right. Don't
Yeah,
just just,
you
just
can't just go yell that.
no.
I have a
You
question
can't.
about the transporters.
Sure.
Okay, haven't they established in Star Trek? I don't know if they've established if you can set a timer on a transporter to go out to activate at a certain time. But haven't they shown where a character will activate the transporter and then walk over and then stand on the transporter and then a couple seconds later they'll transport
They
without
have,
having a
yes.
transporter operator there, right?
Yes.
So I'm thinking maybe that's why the transporter kicked back on again. Maybe it wasn't turned off, or because it
But
noticed something
again,
was in the buffer.
it's a single action transporter cycle. Like it's not like it would come to life by itself. There would have to be someone operating it, I think.
Maybe it was part of the defect or whatever that ore had done to it, because that red light was flashing.
That is possible. There was an alarm going off. You're right.
Kind of like a virus in a computer making it, act strange.
Yeah, that's a possibility. And I may be a little harsh on it. See that 10% down there, the C to C plus. That's me.
I didn't get to vote at all. But this is a very well loved episode. Look at that.
Yes.
71% give it an A to A plus. 19 B to B plus, and
Me.
10%. And then you.
Yeah.
And then you. And then Scotty.
I agree with that poll.
Yeah, it's a great poll, isn't it? Beautiful. And I love your notes, Scotty, because I feel that way a lot of times when I'm watching science fiction, and I want some believability, and when there's just one thing that's kind of messed up, but this one has like three different things, three big glaring things that I forgive, because I love Kirk, Spock, and McCoy so much.
Well, and also being this early on in the
Hmm.
series, like I'm going to be giving out A's like candy in a little bit.
Yeah.
And so there are some times when it's like, okay, let's look at this and just be objective. And some of the real world production stuff gets in my head, and then some of the narrative of the episode itself gets in my head, and so I balance all of those things out. And I don't know, maybe I'm too close to it, but
No, yeah, if I had to be objective, like I said, I would have given a B minus.
mhm.
I could never go lower than a B with this one.
I think it's Shatner's performance that I just
Hmm.
had to give it an A because I do
Yeah,
realize the plot
right.
holes
Me
as well.
too. Me
And
too. That's
considering
exactly.
Mathis,
I stick with my A minus.
right? And I think considering Matheson wrote the Twilight Zone episode with him on the plane and this
Mhm.
episode, he knows how to write for Shatner to get that range of acting. Because you remember how he acted in that Twilight Zone episode as well.
All I
Right.
remember is that there was something on the wing.
Mhm.
A
And
gremlin.
right, a gremlin on the wing of the airplane. No one else can see it though, just Shatner.
Yes.
Son of a Red Shirt is telling you, you haven't seen Breathless,
No.
dude. How is it I confuse you with a guy that knows movies? Well,
Because I
JK,
do. I just haven't seen that one.
I thought for sure you knew Goddard. Breathless must see for sci-fi. Check out Alphaville, and which you two have seen.
Yes, I have.
And Mega Cropper says Blondie Torres was one of the better characters on Voyager,
Agreed.
and says my rating is controversial. Okay. Senator Richard says something like this happened all the way back in 1886 when Robert Louis Stevenson first published The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Something like this happened in the early 60s.
That's a good. You know what? And I'm sure I've heard that analysis of this episode before. Is that this is sort of an appropriation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? It was lost on me this time. I didn't think of it just because I don't really pay attention to gothic horror or thrillers. But yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Senator Richard says when Marvel Comics published The Incredible Hulk, I don't think it's the first time these stories have been told, nor
That's
the last.
correct.
Agreed.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
agree too.
Lenrod said, for how often transporters are used by Starfleet, I wonder how many times this has happened elsewhere. Right. Okay. Did they leave a buoy on this planet? Be careful, this ore is gonna mess up your transporters.
Right. So they're making it look. I'm assuming they're making it look like this is the first time this has happened because of that ore, and it wouldn't happen if it wouldn't been that for that ore.
Yeah, right. If he hadn't cut his hand and whatever.
Well, and I think that that's also when dealing with like original series episodes, it is again, it's the final frontier. It's boldly going where no man has gone before, and that goes for the technology as well. I think that this would have been incorporated into. Okay, we have to. Maybe this would have been the introduction of biofilters or matter filters on transporters as standard operating procedure, as opposed to beam him up. Who cares? So he's carrying some mud. What does it matter? Well, it's radioactive mud, sir.
That's fascinating. That'll be interesting to see how that develops. Son of a Red Shirt says they were weak on explanation for the doubles. I cut it a pass for not having shuttlecraft because I don't believe they built them yet in real life at this point in the series. That's true.
Well, as we mentioned, Uhura was away.
Yeah, Uhura was away at her communications convention symposium.
So as soon as she docked back at the Enterprise, Sulu was waiting at the shuttle deck and being like, "You son of a bitch! You know what happened because you took the car."
I put in a B minus for you, Jill, says Tiger Stripes.
The
Thanks,
Galileo,
Tiger
is it called the Galileo or Galileo 7?
Just the Galileo.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Son of Red Shirt says, I admit. Oh, wait. You know what, Scotty? You read it.
I admit I was a little soft with an A minus, but I have to acknowledge some very important world building was done and some fine performances. Not to mention the introduction of Space Unicornipoodle.
Yes.
Not
You
sure
know
they were
what?
poodles, but that's close enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cute dog probably swayed me too.
Also, rest in peace, that dog.
Yeah.
Although not killed in this episode. No dogs, no unicornipoodles were harmed in the making of The Enemy Within.
Yes, hopefully the little dogs only pass because of the time and old age.
Mm-hmm. He's actually taxidermied and in the Smithsonian right beside Captain Kirk's chair. I have no facts to back that up.
Oh, I know. I know that was a joke, but I just didn't laugh.
It just wasn't funny.
I know it wasn't. Dogs should live forever.
Snoopy agrees.
Son of a Red Shirt says, we know something similar happened in the Next Generation episode where Riker's double was left behind on that planet. Although he wasn't out and out evil, interesting that at DS9 he was soft evil.
Well,
I don't think he was really evil on DS9 either. He was just, he wanted to break away from being anything like William Riker. But at the same time, he couldn't stop himself from still having Starfleet tendencies.
Well, and also, like, when it comes to Thomas Riker versus Will Riker, the situation is that they had completely different life experiences, thusly informing. One was a survivalist, and one, for lack of a better term, like Riker was a careerist. And so he had faith in Starfleet still, but as far as Thomas Riker knew, he was left on the planet and abandoned by his crew. He didn't know there was another Riker.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he was evil. I think he was just jaded.
Yeah, I don't think he was evil either. Or it would have been a much bigger plot point.
Yes.
And so I couldn't be more grateful for you guys coming to review Star Trek with me. So at this point, I'd like to let you guys plug your channels, anything you got going this week. Starting with, let's see. Oh, no, not that. Not that. Nope, I don't know which one it is. There it is.
There you are.
Hello, everybody. Pop Culture here. I have a stream on Monday where Jill joins me. We review Star Trek, the animated series. And if you're all welcome to check out my channel if you get the chance. I also have a few other videos on there as well. If you'd like to check those out, I recommend them. And thank you for having me here, Jill.
You're welcome. And the next TIS episode we'll be reviewing is called The Survivor. Kind of has like a shapeshifter in it. It'll be fun.
Oh, yes, I'm excited. Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. And thank you, everybody in the chat. It was great to see you all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Agreed.
it was.
And first things first, if you are a fan of Pop Culture Curator, you should go over where there is a healthy dose of information in regards to the true father of Star Trek. And it is thought-provoking, and I would recommend seeing that. And then for me, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, although this could be listened to at any time in history, so I have no idea whether or not this is going to be today or 10 years from today. There will be a video on the Phantasmagorium channel in regards to a conversation surrounding Django Unchained, because we're going through the Quentin Tarantino filmography and some, extra special movies to go along with it. By the way, you should see Destiny Turns on the Radio. And
No, you
then,
shouldn't.
okay, listen to Jill for your own safety. And then on Thursday, we will begin an experiment, a quantum experiment, perhaps a leap into quantum experiments, where we're going to be discussing Quantum Leap with everyone's favorite Sam Beckett and Al Calavici. And Jill is going to join me for that, and I'm looking forward to that.
And set right what once went wrong.
Yeah. It's just so nice. It's a tale of people doing good for the sake of good.
Yeah. It'll be wonderful. And thank you to the chat, everybody who is here. Son of a Red Shirt, some fantastic comments. And I'd love seeing Tiger Stripes show up here at the end. And Mega Cropper. Lenrod. Nerdporo Lifeform. Thank you so much. Great comments. Herc130. Dalek451. Always a pleasure to see you. And Potato Revan was even here. And Just Joe 47 was also in the chat, as well as Gorilla's Random Thoughts and John Rendell. Let's see. And then and all who I've named were very good in the chat. They put in many comments that were just fantastic and fascinating. And we also had Dave G. Sand in the chat. And who else? And Pleasant Valley Picker, too, before he had to go to work.
Always a pleasure to see PvP and everyone.
Yeah, I always have such a great chat. Thank you guys.
Yes, it was very fun. Thank you.
And Herc130 says, bye to all. HR is here with the straight jacket. I gotta go.
You got to do it. You do it this time.
I am Captain Kirk. I am Captain Kirk. I'm not as good as you. I'm not as good as you. Is that?
No, you're doing. That was awesome.
Okay, so Son of Red Shirt says, I rarely find dead animals funny. One guilty exception, the elderly woman's dog being assassinated by Michael Palin in A Fish Called Wanda. Oh.
It's Act of Revenge, yeah. He's a steamroller to run over the dog. Very funny movie.
Called Wanda. I feel like
John Cleese and Jamie Lee Curtis comedy.
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I've seen it.
And also the dog tied to the bumper in National Lampoon's Vacation. That was tragically hilarious.
Yeah.
I was just reading that they had a lot of trouble shooting that scene because they kept busting up laughing. So if you watch that scene, you can see that Chevy Chase is trying so hard not to laugh. Yeah. It looks like he's literally biting his lip.
So, yes, I apologize for bringing up the finite nature of pets' lifespan.
Oh, and let's do that.
All right. Well, now that we're all sufficiently depressed, Jill, may I make one request?
Sure.
Give me the brandy!
If there was one clip from the episode I should have gotten, was that one?
Oh, no.
Well, I don't need the clip because I have you.
I'm going to post it. I'm going to post it somewhere, and I'm going to share it just relentlessly.
Please do that. And so next week, we're getting to the first Star Trek episode that anyone ever saw on broadcast television. We're going to watch The Man Trap, which premiered on September the 8th, 1966. And so I'll be ending the podcast with the preview for that episode, which we'll watch next week. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day and enjoys their Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Pop Culture. Thank you,
chat. It was my pleasure. Good to see you all. Thank you, everybody in the chat.
Yes. Have a great day, everyone. See you next time. Here's the trailer for next week.
Cool.
Captain's log, stardate 1324.1. On planet M113, we encounter a killer from a lost world.
Red modeling all over his face.
What happened?
What do you suppose happened, Captain? You beamed down a crewman who doesn't know better than to eat
I've just lost a crewman, Mrs. Grader. I want to know what happened. And what kills a healthy man?
I'll tell you something else. This man shouldn't be dead. I can't find anything wrong with him. According to all the tests, he should get up and just walk away from here.
Can you recognize this thing when you see it? Professor, I'll forego charges up to this point. But this creature's aboard my ship, and I'll have it, or I'll have your skin, or both. Now, where is it?
I'll kill to stay alone. You hear that, Kirk?
Crater knows the creature. If we can take him alive.
We don't want you here.
Let's get him.